Hey guys, so let's go and get into it. Today's date is April the 6th, 2019, and this is how the Frack We Got here. I'm host of host Will Buchanan on how the Frack We Got here. We do talk about, basically the week's events and honestly try to make sense out of it all. Before I do get started, this is an adult podcast, which means that things of adult language, things of a graphic or maybe highly detestable nature may be shown, so viewer discretion is advised. So for all those who are sticking around, welcome. So let's just go ahead and get into it. So this entire week might as well just be how low can Donald Trump go? Well, let's just start off with what he said about solar power, which is funny to me. Well, not about solar power, what he said about wind power, which is still disturbing.
You'd be doing windmills, and if it doesn't blow, you can forget about television for that night. Darling, I want to watch television. I'm sorry, the wind isn't blowing. I know a lot about wind.
You look at our military, look at the fact that we would have been powered by wind, which wouldn't have worked, by the way, because it only blows sometimes and lots of problems come about.
Yeah, it's that bad. It is. If a lot of you guys are scratching your heads right now, I understand, because apparently wind power cannot work because the wind doesn't always blow all the time. I lost brain cells looking at that. Like, somebody who does not have a basic understanding of how turbine energy, or how turbines work, how wind energy is actually collected. And this is why I say so much that education is so much needed, because proper education would have showed you that he was all the way, I mean, even from a common sense standpoint, he is all the way wrong about what he's saying. Renewable sources work. You know why? Because at this point, 14 countries right now are working on renewable energy. I want to say Germany's one. Australia's starting to come up that way. China is almost all renewable energy. So you're telling me countries like China can get it down, but we have a so-called idiot that's going to turn around and sit there and say, "Oh, well, we can't use it because it's blue all the time." Yes, but let's keep on using big oil, and let's keep on buying from overseas, and let's also keep doing all this crap that isn't getting any better and hurting our environment. But then again, he doesn't believe in climate change either, so there you go. So, trust me, that's only one of 3 things I found that he said this week that was completely stupid. But we're going to keep it moving right along. So, by now, everybody has seen that, yes, the Mueller report has been given out. Yes, William Barr, the Trump-appointed AG, pretty much skimmed over it and said, well, Trump's not guilty of anything. Well, funny thing about that is that, the Mueller report is over 300 pages. William Barr looked at it under 48 hours and made a summarization. And I don't blame the Democrats. You looked over a 300-page report in less than 2 days and came straight to that assumption. Yeah, that sounds a little fishy too. And being so, this would actually bring it forward as far as them subpoenaing the Democrats moving forward and subpoenaing the Barr report. And this is what's happening so far with that.
But some on the special counsel team are frustrated with how the Attorney General summarized the findings in his 4-page letter to Congress. Sources tell CNN that several investigators on Robert Mueller's team are telling people outside the special counsel's office that William Barr failed to adequately describe how the investigation of potential obstruction of justice included derogatory information about President Trump's actions. One source said Mueller's team wrote summaries of their findings and expected more of that to be used. Public perception so far has largely been shaped by Barr's letter summing up the main conclusions of the investigation. It referred only to evidence on both sides of the obstruction issue. And ultimately, Barr, not Mueller, decided that evidence did not amount to an obstruction of justice offense.
In the public domain, there are comments that people on the Mueller team think that there's a mischaracterization by the Attorney General. I don't know. There's an easy answer to this. Release the Mueller report as soon as possible.
The fight to frame the report carrying on even though almost no one knows what's in it, including the FBI director.
Have you had an occasion to read the Mueller report?
I have not.
The Justice Department today defended how the Attorney General has been releasing information, saying in a statement, the Attorney General decided to release the report's bottom line findings and his conclusions immediately, without attempting to summarize the report. Adding that Barr does not want to release the report in serial or piecemeal fashion and is still working on redactions. As the White House prepares for battle over the report's findings,
the people that have been involved in this process, they've wasted 2 years of their life and they need to find a way to validate it. They've lost in 2016, they lost on the collusion battle, and now they're looking for any and everything they can to continue to attack this president because they have no message. Democrats are making it increasingly clear that whatever Barr is preparing won't be enough. They want to hear directly from the special counsel.
I think it's inevitable that Mr. Mueller is going to testify at some point.
And actually, that's probably going to be true. It's amazing to me. I find it very amazing that when this report, as far as the Mueller report going on investigation, how the right kept on saying, well, there's no collusion, this is a witch hunt, this is a waste of taxpayer money. Okay, keep in mind, they have been saying that for nearly 2 years. Nearly 2 years that they didn't sit there and say, oh, well, we'll just wait for the report to come out, it's going to exonerate us. No, they kept on saying the same thing. Witch hunt, no collusion, waste of time. Okay, fine. Mueller report comes out. William Barr is the only guy who has seen it. William Barr sits there and makes, in my opinion, the most quickest snap judgment ever contrived in a high-profile case. He could have took a week, 2 weeks, maybe took his time. No, he summarized in 48 hours. Oh, there's no signs of collusion. No obstruction of justice. Well, there was very big signs of construction of justice. You just chose not to look at them. And at the same time, again, Republicans are immediately jumping on. See, we told you, no collusion. We told you there was no Russian investigation. Okay, release the report. Well, there's security issues. Time out. This is how you know it's bullshit. If there's nothing in there that you say that there's no collusion, there's no obstruction of justice, why isn't the report made public? I mean, it's taxpayer money. We obviously have a right to view it in its entirety. But they're going to sit there and they now use the excuse of security, of national security. Really? So I'm trying to figure out what is the whole deal with national security on a report that's supposed to investigate whether or not Russia messed with our election. It is fairly obvious that they have. But the simple fact of the matter is, if we basically funded a taxpayer investigation, where's the report? Why is it taking so long for us to get it? Why is it taking so long for Democrats to get it? Why is at this point there's only one man in his team is the only ones that seen the report outside of Mueller? Here's my point. My point basically is just that there is something there. You know what the funny part is? How you know something's there when they're hesitant to release it. Keep in mind, there was a vote in the House of Representatives, 420-0, to make the report public. In the Senate, they are blocking it. Now, you know, one would sit there and ask, if it exonerates you, wouldn't you want the report to be public? I'm just saying, if President Trump went from saying, oh yeah, we'll go and make the report public, to next week he's like, well, we might want to hold up on that. So what changed from making the report public to hold up, we might want to hold off on that? You know what that tells me? Exactly what Mueller's team has just said, that William Barr did not adequately address the evidence presented, which tells me that there's a shitload more than just reasonable doubt. But again, we'll see what goes on as far as the days go on, because now a full subpoena is in request, and at this point, along with that and Trump's tax records that might actually be released this week, it might always end up in court, which is why I've always just said I should have became a lawyer, because let's be honest, there are no slow days as a lawyer. But anyway, moving right along to presidential. We all know Joe Biden has now announced that he's announced all but running, which probably he will go. I mean, by now he's actually already said he's running. So a couple of things that come forth about his inappropriate invasion of personal space. So what's interesting is that Joe Biden decided to address it like this.
Please put your hands together and give a warm IBEW welcome to the 47th Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden.
I just want you to know I had permission to hug Lonnie. We had permission. I don't know, man. Anyway.
He embraced a union leader, makes what he considered to be a joke. And then after, I think we have it, the former vice president calling some children up on stage for hugs and handshakes, did it again.
Except, by the way, he gave me permission to touch him.
I talked to a lot of people around the vice president. He doesn't think he's done anything wrong. He says he welcomes a character debate, but he says he gets it. He doesn't get it if he's not understanding the women think their space was violated, that they were disrespected. They're not going to find that funny.
You say the word disrespect. So earlier in that speech, he was talking about how people treat blue-collar workers, how they treat wait staff. He said, it matters how we treat people. Exactly. It matters how these women feel. It matters if they feel like they were disrespected by the vice president or the former vice president. That's what matters here. And his jokes today run counter to that web video.
And they would actually be correct. They would actually be very correct. Because the reason why they say that is, like, you would think from Biden's standpoint, now would not be the good time to make jokes toward women in a presidential candidate season. It really wouldn't be. The reason why is because, yes, these stories have now just popped up, and then again, the whole thing of questionable comes to mind. It's like, where were these women when he was involved, when he was vice president, when he was running for vice president, during both presidential terms? It becomes that whole situation of where are they now, but now they disappeared. That can be argued. However, how Joe Biden decided to take that, not the best way to make jokes of it, because number one, it's perception. Honestly, it's perception when it comes down to, you've been accused of inappropriately touching and kissing women. The best thing you should do, address it head on in a presidential manner. May not want to do it as a joke, because as a joke, that means you're not taking it seriously, which means that it could come off as the wrong way. Now, then again, Joe Biden comes from that era where they just, he feels like everything can be done right, everything's just a mistake. But the thing about it is, it's only a mistake when you choose to keep on doing it, knowing full well that maybe you should, change your approach. The whole thing of him honestly going, well, I asked permission before I hugged him. That to me is like, you don't get it. It's almost like you're playing to a crowd. You're pulling a trump card is what you're doing. Now, may he clean up his act? May he do better? I don't know, but I just say that, this is the type of, and a lot of women who were in politics said this is the type of attitudes they have to deal with. I mean, whether you're a woman or a Muslim, which goes into my next story, which is basically Rep. Omar. Ilhan Omar of Minnesota had a death threat on her for a man willing to kill her. And the thing of where he said this is that he goes around and says, well, I support the president that we don't need Muslims in Congress. Of course, the representative, also a woman, is also Muslim. And it's amazing to me because the reason why this isn't the first time she's been in the news. The first time she was in the news was because she called out pro-Israelite groups who have been funding Congress, and she sat there and said it's all about the Benjamins. She got called out for it, but I'm like, she's not wrong. I mean, the thing about it is, certain groups have funneled their money, just like corporations, into political PACs to basically get their interests pushed along the line. She called it out, and she got provided for it. Now, in this case, this is where I said this is what I call the Trump effect, where people can think because they follow President Trump, who apparently he is a xenophobe. A xenophobe, a racist, and pretty much zero targets Mexicans and Muslims. Which in this case, exactly what the guy who threatened the president, the representative with, said: loves the president, hates Muslims in our government. Think about that. He sat there himself, said that President Trump has gone on record saying how much, the Muslims are a threat, the Mexicans are a threat. He has been saying all of these things. Why are we surprised? Surprised, mind you. And the thing about it is, it never ceases to amaze me that, yes, your words do carry weight. Yes, your words with certain individuals are going to carry weight, and they are going to follow it like it's a cult. And let's be honest, anybody that's following Trump might as well be a part of a cult, because this isn't the first time. This is what, the fifth act where violence was prevented. Thankfully, violence was prevented, but there's another person claiming Donald Trump influenced him to go do this. And it's amazing to me how a lot of people are taking this seriously. Yes, there are a lot of idiots out there that do follow this man and will commit acts of violence, and that is a scary fucking thing. Even so much more where so-called they always say Donald Trump's a great president at all. Well, you probably should look at this first, because here's his whole new take with Mexico, which I still find funny.
Trump backing off his threat to close the border, a big reversal in just days as he flies to the border in California this morning. Chief White House correspondent John Carl tracking all the latest. Good morning, John.
Good morning, George. The president's going to Calexico, California, there on the border. He's going to be unveiling a brand new section of border wall, 2-mile section. There's already a plaque down there calling this the first section of President Trump's border wall to be completed. But, George, there should be a footnote to that plaque. For one, this section of wall was actually approved back in 2009 by President Obama. So this is not exactly, and also it replaces some wall that was there previously. So this is not a brand new section of wall, and it actually is something that was ordered by the previous president, not by Donald Trump.
Meantime, the president's saying that he's going to keep the border open, at least for now. Just on Sunday, Mick Mulvaney, the White House chief of staff, was telling you on This Week that it would take some kind of dramatic change to prevent the president from closing the border. Doesn't seem to have been dramatic change in the last several days.
Doesn't seem to be anything dramatic. There has been some action by the Mexican government, though, George, to make it harder for migrants to cross the southern border on the way to the U.S. border, Mexico's southern border. So there has been some actions by the Mexicans, but there was also intense pressure from Republicans in Congress who warned shutting down that border would have devastating economic consequences.
Yeah, across the board. Meantime, the president weighing in to the stories surrounding Joe Biden this week, pretty brazen, given the accusation.
Pretty much there. I'm just going to leave it there for that. But a lot of that where, he loves to go to Mexico. I don't know what it, I'm starting to wonder, what is Trump's hard on for Mexico? First off, he wanted to build a wall, so the Mexicans are going to pay for it. Mexico's still laughing. He sat there and warned about the millions of the migrant caravan, like they're the Walking Dead, and these are just people who are just escaping to make better lives. They're not out to be destructive. They're just out to make better lives. And let's be honest, it's not like we're not lacking space here in the U.S. There are a couple flyover states here that can use a little bit more in the population area. At the same time, immigration is good for the economy. Because let's be honest, if we started deporting everybody that was of immigrant or illegal immigrant status, a lot of us wouldn't be here. Just saying. And then again, he decides that, as he said on Thursday, that he's going to give Mexico 1 year to stop the flow of drugs and migrants into the U.S. He's going to give them 1 year or he'll close the border. I'm sorry. That's funny as hell. You're going to go, you went straight to Mexico and threatened them they're going to build this wall. Mexico's still laughing. You're going to now threaten Mexico 1 year to stop the flow of drugs and migrants, of immigrants, and Mexico's still going to laugh at you. This is why I say sometimes this is a weak ass president, and he is weak. He's an idiot, but he's weak. You're not going to sit there and tell me that you're going to sit there and force Mexico, who already has issues of their own, and you're going to tell them to stop the flow of drugs. Keep in mind, the last bit of drugs that were ever seized on U.S. soil came through legal ports of entry. There is yet to be a story, I say this very clearly, there is yet to be a story where drugs were actually smuggled through somewhere that wasn't a legal port of entry. Almost every big bust they had came through legal port of entry. So again, what good is the wall? And on top of that, he tried to go down there and talk about the wall, a wall that was already being replaced by the black guy, and you decided to put a plaque on it like it's mission accomplished George Bush style. Yeah, that's really bright. So again, it's funny how he's giving all these ultimatums out, and yet he never follows through on any of them. I mean, it's just interesting to where it's almost like if you'll go back to where Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer all had this discussion and made it public, where he sat there and said during the shutdown, if the shutdown occurs, it is completely and utterly my fault. Okay, shutdown showed up. Well, it's Democrats' fault. No, you turned around and sat there and said, on video, mind you, if the shutdown happens, it is your fault. So I'm not surprised about him now giving this ultimatum about, oh, well, if this happens, Mexico's going to be shut down. No, because most of the companies you gave tax breaks, mostly car companies, have moved down to Mexico and started production there. So if you shut down Mexico, you shut down those companies that you gave wonders tax breaks for and took ours away. But going along, when I say about education is important, everybody guys remember that scandal that's going on in USC about parents paying this one guy to get their kids into USC on some BS, talking about they're a part of the road team and they're really not, and they're just going to school just because their parents want them to go. Turns out USC is not the only one. There's actually another story that came out that's exactly the same.
Admissions controversy, this time at Harvard, where the school is investigating its longtime fencing coach over a questionable real estate deal involving the father of fencers on the team. Paul Ferris here with the story. Good morning, Paula.
Good morning to you, George. Good morning, everyone. The father says that he bought this home as a favor for the fencing coach, whom he considers a close friend. But the purchase was so suspicious in the town that the town's top housing assessor wrote in his notes that the amount he paid for it made no sense.
This morning, Harvard University finding themselves in the center of an admissions controversy. The sale of this modest home in Massachusetts is now raising questions. The home's former owner, Harvard head fencing coach Peter Brand. He sold the house in 2016. At the time, it was valued at nearly $550,000. But when it sold in May of that year for nearly $1 million, eyebrows were raised.
It was very strange indeed for a house to sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars above market value.
However, a local tax assessor tells ABC News that this transaction is not unusual. The Boston Globe saying the home was purchased by this man, Jack Zhao, CEO of iTalk Global Communications. Both of his sons, fencers on Brand's team, one of them seen here at practice. Zhao telling the Boston Globe he acknowledged the purchase may look suspect. However, it wasn't meant to help get his son into Harvard, adding with his family's ties to Harvard and his son's good grades, it's a no-brainer. I don't have to do anything. All of this comes on the heels of the controversial Operation Varsity Blues, the scandal that has raised serious questions into the college admissions process for wealthy parents and their children. Harvard University, which has not been linked to that scandal, tells ABC News there's a lot we still don't know, adding the new allegation that came to light this week is against one individual regarding transactions that pertain to one family. We are now moving quickly to learn more about these claims through an independent review.
Again, Harvard learned about this for the first time just a couple of days ago. They have hired outside counsel to investigate, and they stress that their admissions policy is unique it is rigorous, noting the final decision for each student is made collectively by a 40-person committee. But George, as for these boys, they tell the Boston Globe they had no idea that their father purchased this home from their coach. We reached out to the coach. He's not.
And one difference from these other stories, these boys actually were on the fencing team, or are on the fencing team.
They are on the fencing team, and not only that, they're considered some of the best, the most excellent athletes on the fencing team, and they're excellent students as well.
Paula Ferris, thanks very much. Now to
So what's interesting about that is, and I still find it funny as all get out, is because they try to sit there and say it has nothing to do with his sons getting to Harvard. Okay, let's check the timeline on this. You bought and sold a house twice its value. Then your sons got into Harvard. The purchaser was with Harvard in some capacity. And your sons, who are fencers, still got into Harvard. Yeah, there is a lot of smoke there. And it's amazing we try to sit there and say, well, they got in on their good grades, they got in on this. Oh, great cover. But, you know, a little grease gets you a long way in the Ivy League schools. Harvard is an Ivy League school. And from my experience, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, all those Ivy League schools are definitely difficult to get into. At the same time, I'm not surprised that this story comes up because now every parent who may have in some way or form had a financial contribution and their kids got into said school, yes, it should be questioned. Yes, it should be investigated. And I personally think in that situation, I think that's another USC. That's another USC scandal waiting to happen, which says a lot about their admission rules. But then again, it's funny how this parent is claiming innocence when really you don't. Like I said before, there's too many questionable options there. But hey, this just goes back to that whole thing what I talked about between actually education and kids just trying to get in. That you have to do everything that you can. And from a parent standpoint, I mean, my parents didn't sell a house to get me into college, but again, it's amazing how some parents are justifying that or trying to say that, yeah, this has nothing to do with that when it has everything to do with that. But again, that's not the only parent because supposedly there's other indictments coming down the road. So we expect other parents to be popping up in the news lately and talking about that, you know, this didn't have anything to do with my child getting to school. Right. So with that also being said, we're actually going into this whole thing about now Trump wanting to be, Trump wants his party, the Republican Party, to be the party of healthcare. And to do so, he wants to dismantle Obamacare. Yep, I cannot make this up because a Texas federal judge ruled that Obamacare is unconstitutional, and President Trump ordered the Justice Department to basically sign on to the federal Texas judge. Keep in mind, he's again interfering using the Justice Department. That is also known as an obstruction of justice. So, William Barr, if you ever look at my podcast, this is what obstruction of justice looks like. When you use the powers of the Justice Department to influence a decision to basically get what you want. That is called obstruction of justice. So, it's amazing to me that now the Obamacare is going to come right back up into play again, where 20 people who are actually insured under the ACA law may actually lose coverage again. I've said it once and I'll say it before. Healthcare is a for-profit business, and that is the problem. The problem with for-profit businesses is that you have companies like Cigna, United Healthcare, I keep going down the road, but let's just say for the general part of them, the bigger ones like Aetna and all them, Cobra, they all have influence in Congress. They can basically write the laws that they can follow. And the ACA law was not one of their own doing because they had to turn around and because the ACA law forces them to cover people with pre-existing conditions. And of course, if you do have a pre-existing condition before the ACA law, you probably found it very hard to find coverage, or if you did, you paid more than an average person because of the pre-existing conditions. The ACA law makes sure of that you don't get denied and you don't pay more. So that's exactly what the ACA law is intended to do. Now, if they ever get down to brass tacks, the only way that our healthcare gets better is going to a single payer system. And yes, you can consider that socialism all you want to, but socialism works. We already have socialism. We actually already have multiple socialist programs already in effect that have benefited many people. So saying socialism like it's a bad thing really doesn't help your case. But again, with President Trump still trying to push forward and removing Obamacare, it's honestly the dumbest thing you can do. Yes, Obamacare is not a perfect system. It is not. That also being said, keep in mind the insurance companies, the health insurance companies, they're the ones that set the prices. They're the ones that have the lobbyists in place that prevent you from buying from drug market competitions such as Canada, such as Mexico, such as overseas. Like, if the drug markets are opened up, competition would be rampant. But then again, American healthcare companies love the fact that they have the United States landlocked, because that allows them to set the prices and go from there. Now, again, you're probably wondering why I can't get my drugs from other countries. Simply put, they lobbied to make sure that you couldn't get drugs from Mexico or from Canada or from Australia or from China or from the Middle East. They won't allow that. But it's kind of funny. The rest of the world has open market drug pricings. They can go anywhere they want to get their drugs, to get their medications. U.S. is only one of 3 countries that don't allow that. What do you say, EJ? Neither is our justice system. Oh, I can go into a whole nother. You're right, but I can go into a whole nother. That's a whole other 2-3 hour discussion on that. But you are right. But moving right along, because it's gonna be kind of funny, because them fighting Obamacare means he has to go back to his base and tell them that they're about to lose their health care. And let's be honest, a lot of people support Trump until their health care is in question. Just saying. But going into the next story, which is, again, it's a blast of the past, and it's something not new to us. Suspicious church fires that have been happening in Louisiana, which again makes me very wondering if it's history repeating.
Into a string of suspicious fires at historically black churches in Louisiana. 3 churches have burned in less than 2 weeks near Baton Rouge. Omar Villafranca's there.
The fire at Greater Union Baptist Tuesday burned from the roof to the pews. For Pastor Harry Richard, whose grandfather helped start the church more than 100 years ago, the damage is personal.
He left a legacy for me, and I was trying to fulfill that to the best of my ability.
All stations, we have a church fire, Highway 182.
The suspicious fires began early last week, the most recent one yesterday. All 3 historically black Baptist churches are just a few miles apart in St. Landry Parish. H. Butch Browning is the state fire marshal.
Based on what you've seen here, is this a crime scene?
Yes, we do believe that this fire is suspicious. We do believe a crime has occurred.
Historically, the burning of black churches was used to intimidate communities. Parishioners here are on edge. Kyle Sylvester is the pastor of St. Mary's Baptist, the first church that was burned.
We can't let this setback stop us from doing what God has initially called us to do.
The ATF and FBI are involved in the investigation, but the fire marshal says it's too early to categorize any of the fires as hate crimes.
We're going to solve this, and for the people responsible, the right thing to do would be come ask for redemption and come forward and let us help you through this process. Don't make us hunt you down, because we will.
Investigators have sent evidence to the state crime lab, but results could take a few more days. As for the churches, all 3 pastors tell me they plan to rebuild. Margaret?
So I just love the fact of, it's sad, like I said, historically, historical black churches is always terrible when they get burned down. It is amazing to me, however, when he sat there and said, well, we don't want to characterize this as a hate crime. Historically, who has always burned down black churches? Because it's like, we can go back to the Birmingham burnings, because let's be honest, that was KKK. You can go to besides Birmingham, Montgomery. You can go to Salem. Hell, you can go to North Carolina. You can even at this point go to Louisiana. Why is it always when historical black churches get burned, they immediately turn into we don't want to categorize this as a hate crime? Yeah, you don't want to jump the gun, but what has history taught us? History has taught us when a black church gets burned, 9 times out of 10 it's not a black person. 9 times out of 10 it's a guy with a hood, or in this case, look for the guy with the MAGA hat on, because I guarantee He's probably there. I guarantee you, like I said, I hope they do catch the group or person associated with this arson, but I'm just not going to be surprised whether or not it's a person with a MAGA hat on, because that is the new KKK hood. But like I said, it's sad when I hear that it's like, black churches being burned. Hopefully, thankfully nobody was killed. But at the same time, 3 black churches all burned within miles of each other in the same week. Come on now, it doesn't take rocket science to figure that one out. But also, like I said, we keep on going on of dumb things Trump has said. Well, here's number 2, because this is also him when he was down at the border and they asked him questions.
Jeff Glor is on assignment tonight. I'm Margaret Brennan. President Trump flew to the southern border today and delivered a blunt message to migrants hoping to enter the U.S. Turn around. An estimated 100,000 were apprehended at the border last month, the majority of them families. The president says the country is full. He accused asylum seekers of trying to pull off a scam. Chip Reed is traveling with the president.
It looks great. It's better and much more effective than the previous wall.
President Trump today toured a 2-mile section of border wall completed last fall in Calexico, California. A plaque proudly decrees that this is the first section of President Trump's border wall.
We are completely overwhelmed as agents and as an agency.
During a discussion with border officials, he was told border agents simply can't handle the recent flood of migrants coming through Mexico from El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. The president said he has a message for those coming or thinking about coming to the U.S., including those who say they are being persecuted in their own countries and are seeking asylum.
We can't take you. Our country is full. Our area is full. The sector is full. Can't take you anymore. I'm sorry.
Mr. Trump added that some aren't legitimately seeking asylum.
They're gang members. They're not afraid of anything. It's a scam, okay? It's a scam. It's a hoax.
Last week, the president prompted widespread speculation that he would use this visit to announce the closure of the entire border.
I'm telling you right now, we will close the damn border. And we'll keep it closed for a long time. I'm not playing games.
But today, he mentioned closing the border only as a possibility in the distant future.
And if that doesn't work, which it will, we'll close the border.
That's in part because his own advisors, business leaders, and Republican members of Congress told him it would be a disastrous mistake.
Closing down the border would have potentially a catastrophic economic impact on our country.
Chip, the president said earlier today he wants to, quote, scrap the entire asylum system. Is that realistic?
Well, the simple answer is no. It would have to go through Congress, and there is no chance that the Democratic House would agree to scrap the asylum system. And many Republicans in Congress would agree because there is a long history in this country of bringing in people from other countries who are persecuted or fear for their lives in their own countries. Margaret?
All right. Chip Reed at the border. Thank you.
Yep, I told you this was going to be. Trump says the stupidest things this week. He turns around and tells immigrants that our border is full. I'm sorry, our country is full. We can't take any more on. I'm sorry, when did the U.S. become a parking lot? Can anyone answer me that question? When did the U.S. become a parking lot to where our idiot in chief turns around and sits there and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, our country is full. We can't take no more on." And then he goes on to sit there and say, "Oh, well, some of those guys may actually be gang members." How do you fucking know? I'm like, pardon my French, how do you fucking know? First you sit there and say you can't take anybody on. Then you turn around and sit there and say some are gang members. What are you working off? The Clio intuitive system? And then you want to scrap the asylum system. Okay, cool. If you want to scrap the asylum system, good. But replace it with something. Don't sit there and just scrap it just because most of your voter base doesn't like immigrants. Because let's be honest, this is you again pandering to your voter base. Your voter base is mostly xenophobic and racist. So it amazes me so how Trump can go around gallivanting how he's actually going to do something when he's really not. You know, he gets there and say the whole time he won't stop immigration. You're not going to stop immigration. Here's the thing. You won't stop immigration from a nation of immigrants. I mean, technically, it was more like the white people that kind of took out the Native American group by genocide, but we can go into that whole history story later. The reason being is that if you're trying to say that our country is closed, please go over to Ellis Island and remove that plaque that says, "Give me, you're tired, you're hungry," and of course, all that. Because Ellis Island welcomes immigrants. You go to Mexico, there's a "Do Not Enter" sign. I'm like, this is again the reason why Trump doesn't get it. But then again, Trump does get it. He's a racist white guy that doesn't like black kids on his lawn. This is basically Clint Eastwood saying, "Kids, you black kids, get off my lawn." Pretty and simple. So I'm not surprised now that he's again trying to double down on Mexico, trying to double down on everything he's saying in the hopes that it gets him votes. Because there's going to be one white dude, "I don't want them damn Mexicans on my lawn. But I do need them to pick my vegetables though." Again, not really surprised that Trump would say that. But then again, it's not the first time something dumb and long that came to that. And also, as we're kind of going down the wind down of this, I do talk about this. Now, anybody knows Chick-fil-A, or as I like to call it, Jeebus Chicken. And don't get me wrong about Chick-fil-A. There's something about that chicken. I don't know if the chicken strips, chicken sandwiches, or chicken nuggets. They got some shit down. And if I ever figure out the formula of how they cook their chicken, I won't need them anymore. But again, Chick-fil-A has now been banned from a second airport. Because for anybody that knows, Chick-fil-A does have a strong stance against LGBTQ individuals. And they actually are against their views. So again, they were actually removed from one airport in San Antonio. And now they've been removed from a second one in Buffalo, Niagara Falls, New York area. So again, it is amazing to me, and I've always said this before, you can be a business. A business doesn't have, or is not supposed to have, you don't have a moral standing anywhere. You don't have moral standing. You're not for something, you're not against something. You are completely neutral because you're a business. McDonald's figured this out. Wendy's figured this out. KFC's figured this out. Chick-fil-A, because they are a traditionally based Christian enterprise, have to go along this line of saying, we just don't like your preferences. And again, they've actually donated to certain causes that are against said preferences. And this is why I sit there and say Chick-fil-A is an exception. Because the reason why I say that, Chick-fil-A has multi corporate sponsors. They have the backings of many churches. So they can take the hit. Now, until those donations and sponsorships and all that crap disappears, Chick-fil-A can be removed from every airport, every college campus, every other area except their own locations, and be fine. Why? Because they have backing. It's almost in the same line as somebody that you may not like. For a long time, it's almost similar to like your favorite villain. Everybody can't stand him, but he has enough backing to stick around. Chick-fil-A the same way. Now, what's the lesson you can learn from Chick-fil-A? Chick-fil-A is backed. They can sit there and say that they don't like the LGBTQ community. Damn, that's a mouthful to say. They don't like them, but they have backing they can stay. The baker that chooses not to bake a gay couple's wedding cake has all the right in the world to do so, but will kill his business because he doesn't have backing. A woman in Kentucky, that stupid ass woman, can say it's against her religion to basically issue a marriage license to two gay couples. Again, you don't have backing. You work for the state. You do have to give marriage licenses for those that ask for it. And you can go into legal battle if you want to. So the reason being, the Chick-fil-A, yes, you have wonderful Jeebus chicken, but at the same time, it's only going to be a matter of time before Chick-fil-A finally takes the hit. Now, I'm not saying it'll happen anytime soon because, like I said, I still eat Chick-fil-A because, let's be honest, nobody's figured out that damn form for Chick-fil-A. And let's also be honest, for a company that hates LGBTQ views, their customer service is something else. I ain't gonna lie, their customer service is refreshing because Anybody who's ever had terrible customer service, you understand. But when you go to Chick-fil-A, I'll be honest. Yes, they do. Yes, their company may be against different people preferences, but you gotta love when you sit there and you go in there and anytime good afternoon, sir. Thanks for coming to Chick-fil-A. My name's Daryl. How can I help you and give you a most wondrous experience? How can I hate on that? But then again, like I said, Chick-fil-A never will change, but as long as they got money, because it's always Christians and money that always seems to have the most of everything. But again, it's just one of those things where I just don't understand. Like, if you're a business, you're neutral. You don't have a say in anything. That's how you keep both sides happy. But moving right along, there was this one thing I did notice as we're starting to go into the good news portion, because we always gotta have some good news, because at the end of doom and gloom, and like I said, we always go over stories that are usually downtrodden or idiotic or even sometimes funny. We all need something to laugh at, as on the way out. And of course, it's the weekend. You want to be able to have some fun. So the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which I like to call the roast session for presidents, come back up. Of course, President Trump didn't go to his previous one because Michelle Wolf skewered Sarah Sanders. He's now skipping this one. And I just thought it'd be fun to watch one of the, kind of like the highlight reel of the jokes that were said at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke.
Tonight, though, we mark the end of an era. George W. Bush is leaving in 8 months. The vice president is already moving out of his residence. It takes longer than you think to pack up an entire dungeon.
When do you think a fetus becomes a human being?
When it votes Republican.
Rosie O'Donnell was the president's first choice to be here this evening, and she withdrew, citing a nasty and brutal confirmation process.
Connie's the one, being very diplomatic in the meetings, Well, that's good. It's great. We're all on the same pattern because at the end of the day, freedom is what we all want. The leads will come out like, North Korea saying, what?
Now, I know there's some polls out there saying that this man has a 32% approval rating. But guys like us, we don't pay attention to the polls. We know that polls are just a collection of statistics that reflect what people are thinking in reality.
I mean, it's proud. You're proud to be able to say that. The first black president. Well, that's unless you screw up. And then it's going to be, what's up with the half-white guy, huh?
Donald Trump often appears on Fox, which is ironic, because a fox often appears on Donald Trump's head. If you're at the Washington Post table with Trump and you can't finish your entree, don't worry, the fox will eat it.
Mr. President, I know you won't be able to laugh at any of my jokes about the Secret Service, so cover your ears if that's physically possible.
I actually really like Sarah. I think she's very resourceful. Like, she burns facts, and then she uses that ash to create a perfect smoky eye.
Nuclear proliferation. Nuclear proliferation.
Traditions like the White House Correspondents' Dinner are important.
I mean, really? What is this dinner? And why am I required to come to it?
The free press is central to our democracy, and nah, I'm just kidding. You know I've got to talk about Trump. Come on. Is he at home eating a Trump steak? Tweeting out insults to Angela Merkel? What's he doing?
What's interesting is, okay, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, exactly how it sounds. It is honestly one of those times to where, yeah, roast gets said. We understand this. And of course, Trump is skipping that. So we shouldn't be surprised because, a bully doesn't like it when he's made fun of. So, good luck first lady on your Be Best campaign, because your worst victim is actually your husband. Well, bought husband. We're not going to get into that. But again, the last story I have is honestly, it's actually kind of a heartfelt story to where, honestly, this kid may never have to pay for another Mother's Day gift ever again. You guys see what I'm talking about momentarily.
He was tired of seeing me cry.
I saw people on YouTube and they get their mom a car and then just like surprise their mom with the car. It was really cheap, so I asked if I could trade the Xbox or burn it, and then she said, at first she said no, and then she said she thought about it, and then she said yes.
I lost it. I bawled so bad. I was just like, there's no way. What 13-year-old do you know buys their mom a car? I don't know any. At my, low point, here comes my son. Everybody goes through rough patches in their life, but there's good that can come from any situation, as long as somebody with a heart does it.
Okay, so first and foremost, that kid will never have to get another Mother's Day gift for as long as he lives. And this might, and again, it's one of the things where I sit there and say, you know what, sometimes you gave up your Xbox. I was like, this kid went and said, Mom, I'm gonna give up my gaming system to get you a car. Do you know how much clout that kid's got right now? If that kid ever fucks up, you know what he gets there and say? Mama, I bought a car for you. You getting on me about my grades? I gave up my Xbox for you. You got a car for you rolling because of me. Because I thought of you first. Oh, he'll guilt trip the shit. He'll guilt trip the shit out of that. Let's just be honest. He's gonna sit. I mean, he doesn't seem like the kind of kid from the video. He doesn't seem like the kind of kid that's going to lord that over his mom's head. But trust and believe, when Mother's Day, her birthday come around, you know what he gonna sit there and do? You know what I got you? It's outside. You riding right now. If he doesn't use it, he should. I'm just saying. But it's still a feel-good story because let's be honest. A kid giving up the ability to play Fortnite so his mom can ride, still a wonderful story. But if I was him, I would ride that till the wheels fucking fall off. But with that being said, that's going to be the end of this for the How the Frack We Got Here podcast. So I'm not the only one that actually does this kind of stuff. There are a few fools, just as myself, who are all still, actually, all of y'all are watching. Hey, I didn't even notice. So let's go ahead and start off with Trace, because Trace Brown is about to say bump down, bump down, bump down, bump down, as I expect him to. So my buddy Trace Brown, DJ King Anyway, actually has a few podcasts himself. He actually has the Bump Down, which is a musical podcast, which goes over chart work, what's how the mainstream underground. Also talks about his opinion of the recording industry. And if you were an artist that actually wants your music to be played by DJ King Anyway, please reach out to him via, Trace, you're watching this. Let them know how you can do it, please. So as you'll see in the comment section, Trace will tell you how you can actually send your music to him in the appropriate format. And of course, he'll be able to play on the Bump Down. He also has a Smoke with Truth, which is a unorthodox, in-your-face, check your ego at the door podcast that is not for the faint of heart. You definitely should look into it because he is an unorthodox but intelligent brother that always gives an opinion that is straight out, brutally honest, but highly informative. Between him and my other buddy Vaughn, which I'm about to tell you his podcast very soon, definitely should be watching those as well. And speaking of Vaughn, who's also watching, he actually has a few podcasts of his own. He actually has, I get the reference, VST, which is a short podcast, just over music, videos, and all news that you might find informative. He also has Rhythmness, where you can reminisce over the rhythm, where he actually goes over music video. I keep on wanting to say music videos. I'm sorry, Vaughn. He actually goes over musical albums and actually tears them off to a 4-tier rating system. If you want to know what the 4-tier rating system is, you have to watch Rhythmness to find out. He also has Random as Fuck. I'm sorry, Vaughn. I can't do it anymore. I tried earlier. Random as Fuck with Uncle VZ, which I like to call it the pool of ratchetness that we like to dip our toes into to give us a little break from life and chuckle a little bit. So he finds videos, just random things to talk about, and like I said, very fun to watch. All of these things. Oh shit. Sorry, Thomas, and also my other friend who also will be on, who will be here later. Thomas, we call him the Mountain Puncher, and when you see his podcast, you'll understand why. Actually has the To Be Determined podcast, which will be later today at 3 p.m., where he actually goes over everything at fitness, because this man literally eats, breathes, sleeps the gym. And he actually does want to be able to tell people, different workouts, what to eat, what to look for, and pretty much just want to give his own testimony of how he got to where he was. Because if I could show you what he was 7 years ago, I'm sorry, my worst Chewbacca impression. He was like, if you watch Gabriel Iglesias, he was, oh hell no, he was that big. But he's not fluff anymore, so he's definitely the guy that'll be able to sit there and tell you exactly what's going on. But again, 3 p.m. Later today. And also with me, of course, How the Frack We Got Here, every 10 a.m. to noon, as far as also my Off-Limits podcast, which will be later today from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., in which we definitely go to areas that very few dare to tread, but we only do it because we want to share knowledge. So, ooh, that hurt. So, aside from that, all of our shows can be found on the I Get That Reference Facebook page. If you're not a part of it, it's easy to join. The only thing we do ask that you just like, share, and as if you just like, share, and basically just comment. Basically be social is all we're asking you to do, really, as far as that page goes. And also, Vaughn, Tracy, if you don't mind, in the comment section, just go ahead and actually put in the audio areas, because they actually have their shows on audio, as well as on Google, YouTube, Spotify. The links they put in, and the links they've actually put in will be where you can actually find their areas. And also at the same time, we actually have YouTube pages as well. So if you look up How the Frack We Got Here, if you look up The Bump Down, if you look up I Get That Reference, if you look up Off-Limits Podcast, and I just went brain dead for a second, all those are active YouTube pages to where we actually have all of our podcasts up to date. Anybody will like, share, and subscribe from there. Aside from that, let's welcome to the party. Feel free to watch the playback because we're kind of wrapping up right now. So with that being said, like I said, on How the Frack We Got Here, we're all about staying informed. Staying informed just basically means that you're not taking everything at face value. You're actually going in and actually doing the research and basically going farther, a lot farther than what news conglomerates would do, and basically bring back what you found and hopefully inspire others to do so. So with that being said, we always try to stay informed here at How the Frack We Got Here. And thanks again for all watching this live and also on the playback. Just feel free to comment, as well as if you're watching it live, we'll go from there. And that is my dog that is still trying to go in the laundry room. So aside from that, guys, hope you guys have a wonderful Saturday. I'll talk to you later. Peace.